Soulful shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, just some soulful shit for everyone, you know what I'm saying? Like, I made this be myself, so hear me. Woo! I mean, like, we can put all that clown shit away. There's some real shit for you. I'm spazzing right now, so listen, let's go. Yeah. It's in their bones, the thugs in harmony for the love of the money. Then fall victim for the cookie, then turn pussy, it's lonely. You said you hold it down when life get rough, we're here now, so show me. We move them losses to them wins. Heavy pounds, we make it ends meet. Converse with only few who make me feel like I be 10 feet.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to the channel. It's G, and today we're taking a look at world-class players. What makes you a world-class player? I think this topic today, this is a pretty big one, to be honest with you, in terms of this is really subjective. It's all based on opinions. Of course, everybody's got them, especially in sport and especially in football. There's been a lot of conversations in regards to who you would deem to be a world-class player, who you would deem to be a top-class player, who you think is on the way to becoming a world-class player. Everybody's got their thoughts and opinion, but I'm here to really and truly ask, what is it that makes players world-class? So as I said, it's all down, to your own personal preference. It's all down to what you deem to be a world-class player. Everyone's got their own kind of definition, their own kind of take on the term in itself, especially when it relates to football players. Obviously, the dictionary meaning is a world-class athlete, performer, or organization is one of the best in the world. So when you see things like this, I'm like, okay, cool. So to me, and again, this is my own take on the actual definition, you need to be the best at what you do. Whether that is, you're a goalkeeper, defender, midfielder, attacker, manager, coach, assistant manager, whether you work in Sainsbury's, whatever it may be, you need to be literally one of the best in the world at what you do. And of course, you need to have had, a bit of longevity, consistency, consistency probably being one of the main things, to be honest with you. Of course, you don't want to be placing players who, were good for about 5 or 6 games here and 5 or 6 games there, and, are not able to really, keep things going for a long period of time. And of course, I'm looking at longevity, I'm looking at consistency, I'm looking at players who have played at the top level. So, i.e., you played in the Champions League. I think, to me personally, I think it's almost impossible to place someone in the world-class bracket without actually having played in the Champions League, considering it's the biggest club competition, especially in Europe, but across the world, it's one of the biggest competitions out there. Internationals, obviously, always a tricky one, because you could be a world-class player, but of course you might come from a country that just might not be that good. So I don't really place too much emphasis on the international stage, kind of thing. I mean, to be honest, most, if not all, world-class players play for their national teams anyway, whether that be you're Brazilian, Argentinian, whether you're from Croatia, heck, Armenia, it doesn't really matter. I think most, if you would consider them world-class, they probably do play for their national teams anyway. But for me, yeah, I think it's those 3 things first and foremost are the kind of things I look at: longevity, consistency, and of course playing at the top level. So I done a show on my channel, Big Up Savage, because we did the show together, where we took a look at players that we would deem to be world class at that time. Now that was done a few months ago, so our opinions probably won't be changing anytime soon in terms of the players that we would actually put in there. But we had players such as the likes of Kylian Mbappe, and Vinicius Jr. Of course, you've got the Manchester City pair of players like Erling Haaland and Kevin De Bruyne. And of course, we can't forget the Ballon d'Or winners, Rodri, Modric as well, 2 players who have recently won the Ballon d'Or award. And of course, there are various other players in there. But I think the point that I wanted to make with that show, and I think this is the point that really really needs to be talked about is that so many different people seem to throw in players, after 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 1 season, kind of thing. There's that longevity, for me. And again, I guess this is just, my own take on the word world class, but a lot of people seem to have changed the meaning of what we would deem to be world-class players. It doesn't have that same ring to it, in terms of players can have one good season and then all of a sudden now that player is a world-class player just based off of that one, season. We've forgotten all about the longevity, we've forgotten all about the consistency, because what usually happens is, with most of these players, they have one really good season, and the next season, not so great. They're not as good as they were the season before. And then we kind of just keep them in there. Is it because there's a lack of top quality players nowadays? Is it because, we feel that we have to have players in a world-class bracket? If there's not enough good players, we don't need to put everybody in there. If there are not world-class players, there doesn't need to be a world-class bracket. It's really that simple. But for some reason, we just want to throw everybody in there, especially, if it's a player who plays for our own club, we want to say, yes, he's world-class, because, of course, having that title world-class is obviously fantastic. Who doesn't want to be called, one of the best in the world, the top 5 or top 3 player, in the world. And I think another word that gets thrown around quite a lot, and, we're seeing it specifically with one player, at this current moment in time, is on form. You can probably guess who it is. It's the player who's on everybody's lips. It's the player who has one of the best celebrations out there in football, and that is Cole Palmer. Now, listen, just to caveat, just to put a disclaimer out there whilst I'm saying all of this, I believe Cole Palmer is a very, very good player. I believe he can potentially go on to do really, really great things. I think at this current moment in time, he's been fantastic so far, since his move from Manchester City to Chelsea. But, people are calling him world class. He's the best player in the world at the moment. Key words there, or key phrase there is at the moment. On form, he is the best player in the world, which makes, by the way, no sense, because it's a bit of a weird phrase when you think about it. At the moment, they're world class. So that basically what you're saying is they're just on form. They're doing really well on form. So you're not calling them world class, but you believe that on form they are the best player, in the entire world, at this current moment in time. But that's neither here nor there. He is definitely one player I believe that, especially, of course, Chelsea fan base, and listen, I understand why they would do it, but he's one player I think, kind of epitomizes how football is kind of seen today. He definitely, is the poster boy for football fans online, for fan bases and stuff like that. When we say, you're putting someone in this kind of bracket, based off of one season, which, by the way, was absolutely incredible, by his standards especially. His team, did poorly in the season, but, listen, you're only one man, you can only help so much. So I'm not going to put too much emphasis on that, but, it plays a factor. Ultimately, it's your first season really playing consistently in terms of game after game after game. On top of that, no European football whatsoever, so hasn't actually touched a European competition as of yet, and even this season has not played in any European, competition. On top of that, it's only been one season. So all of that included, for some reason, quite a lot of Chelsea fans, mainly of course, but quite a lot of people say he's a world-class player. Now, again, like I said, I don't want to take away from the player, because I believe he is a terrific player. I believe he can go on to be a world-class player if he continues what he is doing. But this is the problem, I believe, and it probably makes me sound like an old head, makes me sound like I'm stuck in the past or whatever, but, there can't be a time when football now says, okay, one season, that's it, that's the criteria. As long as you do good for one season, then all of a sudden, you are world class. I just don't see you kind of, it's starting to lose the integrity of the word. We're starting to lose that meaning of world class if all we're going to do is just say one season is enough to do X, Y, and Z. Now, of course, went to the Euros as well, with England, played his part, wasn't a starter, didn't start games. You know, majority of the time he was on the bench until later on in the competition. But listen, he played his part, so you know he can put that on his mantelpiece. You know, all he wants, or you know, the fans can put that on the, you know, on the checklist for when they think about these kind of things. But ultimately, as I said before, you know, there has to be at least a minimum requirement, you know, for these kind of players. But alas, I guess this is what makes sport. You know, this is what makes football especially so interesting, is that there's so many different opinions, there's so many different definitions, you know, of certain phrases, certain terms. And of course, when we're looking at world class, you know, it's obviously supposed to be the elite bracket that we should be putting players in there. And listen, I don't want this to be a, you know, getting at Cole Palmer. This is more to show people that he would be, you know, the poster boy for today's kind of generation in terms of how we think this kind of microwave society that we've got at this current moment in time. You know, this is kind of how they think. You know, if we look back at some of the players of the past, you know, even 10 years ago, to be honest with you, I mean, you look at the team, you know, up there on your screen at the moment. I mean, this is only 10 years ago. And you know, this is the kind of quality that you kind of see. And even when you look at, you know, the Ballon d'Or list of that year, you know, and I'm not even talking like the top 5 players, I'm more just talking from like 10 down to about 20. Again, you just see the difference. And like I said, I don't want to be, you know, I don't want to be seen as, yeah, we're always looking back to the past, you know, football's different now, which is all true, by the way, you know, in terms of football's kind of a different game. It's, again, I just think that, one, more to educate people, but it is more of a, just look at the difference in quality of said players. And now, of course, it's not their fault. It's nobody's fault or anything like that. If anybody's, it's probably more fans' perception, you know, in terms of, because we all understand as a general consensus that the quality of football isn't as good as even 10 years ago. We kind of have had to put our minds at ease by just saying, okay, you know what, because of that, that's why we do, you know, said things. And I think that's probably where most of the problem comes from. But hey, listen, what do I know? But people, please, in the comment section, let me know what you guys think. Let me know where are your heads at. Who do you guys consider to be world-class players? You know, if you had to put a top 20 world-class players of today, 2024, who would they be? Let me know. And why would you put, you know, these players in there? Are there players you think are close to being world-class? You know, what are your reasonings behind that as well? Let me know, of course, your thoughts in the comment section. People, I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.